first phase of people who will be receiving the AstraZeneca will be 150 frontline health workers, where nearly 250 security personnel will also be part of it. We'll also have 550 teachers who will receive the inoculations. Now, all considered, about 3,348,500 people aged 50 years and above, along with 500,000 of people below the age of 50, but with underlying health conditions. So for you who didn't know, who will be receiving these vaccines, the 18 million AstraZeneca, these are the people who will be receiving it: the doctors, frontline workers, the teachers, security forces, 500,000 people above 50 years. And then the other half will be below 50 years, but they already have underlying health conditions. And we also know that the price of this vaccine was at $17, and we'll be receiving it next week, and we're looking forward to seeing what exactly will happen. Now, I want us to move to what exactly the conversation I wanted to have with you. The other conversations, of course, I was having without your input. But now I want you to be part of the conversation. And that means I want you to be telling me your view about what we will be talking about. Now, my concern in my conversation is over the East African community. And the question, of course, that I want to ask is Uganda ready for the East African community? Are we ready to have these blocks come together? We have Uganda, we have Rwanda, we have Kenya, we have Tanzania, we have Burundi, and then the other countries that are joining us, that of course we are trying to speed their process. Salva Kiir was part of the virtual meeting, and Salva Kiir will also be, that is South Sudan, will be part of the East African Federation. We have the DRC that is planning to join. Now we're working on paperwork to make sure that the Democratic Republic of Congo joins us. And then we also have Somalia that is in the pipeline, and they're planning to join the East African Federation. What makes the East African Federation anyways? Is it only the East African countries, or are we going to maybe in future have an African bloc? Is the question that we should be asking ourselves. However, is Uganda, are African leaders ready for this federation? Are they ready for this coalition? Now, our numbers will be on the screen, and you will be calling us to tell us your view on this topic. However, going back a little bit to the virtual meeting that President MUSEVENI had yesterday with a number of heads of states, and they were discussing the future of the East African community. Now, three things got my attention from the discussion they were having. Of course, we know there was a shift of power from the Rwandan president, Kagame, to Uhuru Kenyatta from Kenya. Now, Kagame was the former chairperson of the East African community. And now Kagame has settled down to give Uhuru to run, and hopefully next time we'll have another president. It's a crop rotation for him. And that means different presidents will be holding these positions for a while until they're giving it up to someone else. Now, we have information that we are planning for an East African community, and the official languages that we have chosen for the East African community is English, Kiswahili, and French. Now, those are the languages that were chosen, and it is only fair those languages are chosen. Remember, DRC speaks French. Kagame's country speaks French. Which other country? And then Tanzania and Kenya speaks Kiswahili, and then Uganda speaks English. Anglophone countries versus Francophone countries. Do you remember your history lessons? So Anglophone, Francophone, we decided to bring it together because in East Africa we have those countries in existence. Some of them are Anglo, some of them are Franco, and for us we're an Anglophone country, and we speak English. So the three languages that have been adopted are Kiswahili, English, and French. Now, moving forward with adoptions that were made during the Saturday virtual meeting that was held, they are paving way for a single currency for the whole of the East African region by 2024. Now, the proposals that were made was by 2021, July, there will be a formation of the institute that will pave way for the East African Central Bank. Now, we're looking at creating an East African Central Bank. An East African Central Bank that will have one currency for all the East African states, and I counted them for you as we were beginning. Now that means that if I have Ugandan shillings, for example, if we decide to call them shillings, and I go to Kenya or Somalia or DRC or South Sudan or Kenya or Tanzania or Burundi or Rwanda, I'll be able to use that currency and I do not have to change it like the way we were doing. There are also plans to pave way for one ID for the East African nation. Now, aside from that, they are asking for the East African Constitutional Review Team, chaired by the former Chief Justice of Uganda, Benjamin Odoki, to pave way for the East African political bloc. Now, the political bloc only means that we will be more so a state, so that we have one leader, one president, lead the East African nations. And then the others will be prime ministers, deputy presidents, just like our members of parliament say that we should not have a prime minister, but should have a deputy president. So we'll be having deputy presidents, we'll be having prime ministers, we'll be having the other people who will more so be like vicegerents in these different other East African nations, but we'll be having one head of state, one integrated currency, one integrated bank, one integrated constitution. Do you see that happening, though? Is a question that I'm asking myself. Do we see the East African Federation, East African currency, East African constitution being formed by 2024, according to the plans that are being made? Now, the president gave reasons why he feels like the East African community or East African Federation is strong and should be adopted. And the reason that the president gave was that he feels like security-wise we'll protect ourselves bigger. Imagine an army that consists of these different nations, an army from Kenya, an army from Uganda, an army from Burundi, an army from Tanzania. Now all those armies put together in one, according to the president, of course, His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, who has been one of those people who has progressed the East African community and has made sure that he calls on the other nations to come together and form a community, has said. He says security will be better, and then there will be the integration of markets. That means that the goods in these different states will be able to move without restrictions. Remember the saga between Uganda and Kenya over the milk. Lato was being taken to Kenya. And while Lato was in Kenya, Kenyans brought back Lato saying Lato had a problem. However, we came to find out that Ugandan milk was cheaper. And that means that Kenyan market was saying that the Kenyan people were buying a lot more of the Ugandan milk than they were doing the Kenyan milk. So we had a friction. However, the Ugandan people say if they do not deal with it, then we'll be taking them to the East African court. And now, when we come a little bit to understanding the East African court, because as we're speaking, Malema Birizi took the case to the East African court. You know, so why don't you pick this caller and then we'll be back to discussing the East African court. A very good morning, Oliku Select TV. Well, we lost that caller. Let's continue with looking at the East African court and how the East African court works and who is mandated to take a case to the East African court. We know that Malema Birizi is, as we're speaking, in the East African court. It's not the first time that he has gone into the East African court. Now, Malema Birizi is one of those very controversial lawyers. 1 minute, he was saying, Twagala results za Robert Kyagulanyi, and we know that there's a problem with his results, there's a problem with his name, he changed names here and there. And that argument is still standing by Malema Birizi. However, Malema Birizi's argument changed. He's now in support of Robert Kyagulanyi and his petition against the win of Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. Now, Malema Birizi says that I'm taking this case to the East African Community Court because our judge has refused to recuse himself from this case, and that is Justice Alfonso Omwindolo and 3 other justices that were supposed to preside against the case that is going to be looked at on Thursday to see whether the petition will be pulled out or not. That is Thursday, 9:30 p.m. Now, as we're continuing with the discussion on the East African Court, of course, Endowooza Yoki ku discussion gye tulina mu studios, and the question that we're asking of, do you think that the East African community will stand the ego and the pride and the need for African leaders to stay in power for long? Do you think that the East African community will stand that? What is your thought on the East African community? Our numbers will be on the screen. Now, moving forward with the conversation on the East African Court. Now, the thing about the East African Court is we have 2 justices from Uganda that are in the East African Court. Now, one of the justices who is there is Kiriawire of the Court of Appeal, and he's going to deputize Justice Nesta Kayobera from Burundi. Now, Geoffrey Kiriawire, while he was in Uganda, he was in the Court of Appeal. He was heading the Court of Appeal. But now that he is joining the East African Community Court, he will be deputizing Justice Nesta Kayobera from Burundi. Now, we also have another justice from Uganda, and that is Richard Wewire Wejuli, one of the High Court Commercial Division justices who will now join the East African Court of Justices. Now, the other people who are in the East African Court of Justice is Anita Magenyi from Rwanda, Kathurima Mnoti from Kenya, Richard Muhumuza from Rwanda, and they will be going for 7 years non-stop, and they will not have a renewable term. So once you're in the East African Court as a justice, as a judge, once you're in there, you're given 7 years term. And then after the 7 years expire, you do not go back to court. It reminds me of the conversation that Parliament was having. And according to Parliament, they were saying they needed 7 years to run in this country, to run Parliament, and the president was supporting them. Now, the argument was that the first 2 years when they enter Parliament is based on the fact that they're still campaigning, really, and they're settling down into the parliamentary, chaos, and trying to settle down and trying to feel the air of parliamentary in the August House. And then later on, what is going to happen is that they're trying to pass laws that will, of course, be for your good. And then after that, they have to go back to electioneering. But maybe we should give them the suggestion of the East African Community Court, whereby Mogara 7 years, take 7 years. However, out of the 7 years, you're only going to rule for the 7 years and you never come back. Never. You never stand in the Ugandan political system. 7 years and that's it. I'm thinking that would work if they want the 7 years. And then later on, we can have children who are getting out of school, join the university students, people who are leaders but don't have the opportunity to stand. Because after 7 years, tebako mao regardless of what happens. Now, I know we ask ourselves usually the question of who will go, who has the permission to go to this East African court. Now, any resident of these member states can go to the East African court. NGOs, CBOs, companies that have cases between the East African states can go to this court. And that is why Uganda says they're going to drag Kenya to the East African court. Now, the question that we're asking, do you think that it can stand? Do you think that it is viable? Do you think that the East African court or East African coalition or East African community can stand? Do you think our African leaders can accept to be led but by one person among them? Do you think it is possible? Is the question that we're asking. Mutukubire simu, mtuwe ndowooza yammwe, mtugambe chichi cholowooza in this particular discussion. Now, there are arguments that, and allegations, of course, that President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni seems to be leading this rail. He seems to be progressing it. He seems to be the one that wants to become the first president of the East African Federation. And some people are saying it's only fair because he's the one who has fought for this East African community for a very long time. But let's look at Uhuru Kenyatta. Let's look at Paul Kagame. Let's look at the Tanzanian president, of course, who was represented by his general secretary. He wasn't around at the time. Now, all those people are people who have been in power for a very long time. Although there are reports that the Tanzanian president, Magufuli, is looking forward to stepping down after this term. allegations. We're waiting for the story to develop, and then we'll tell you about it, if there's truth in it. Now, these African head of states have stayed in power for the longest time, and Museveni is making 35 years. And there are other heads of state, Uhuru Kenyatta, who was gone time and time again. We have another candidate, who is Paul Kagame, and all the others who have been there, but unfortunately, they don't want to step down. So do you think that they will be able to come together and form a coalition that will benefit the East African people, the East African Federation, the East African companies? Because see, one of the reasons why we started business in Congo, and we're opening almost a 234-kilometer road that is going all the way to Congo, the question is, why are we opening that road even when Congo has insecurities? And a lot of people were scared that the insecurity in Congo would spill all the way to Uganda. But Museveni said the reason why we're opening is because the amount of money we're getting. Hello, a very good morning.
Good morning to you, madam.
Your name and where you're calling from. Wasuzotia.
I'm Katabara Juma Akram.
Juma.
Calling from Juma Akram.
Assalamu alaikum, Juma Akram.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Juma, Ndoza, what is your thought over this conversation?
Over the issue concerning the East African community, we all know that it was built on the basis of bringing these countries together, most especially the neighboring countries. So they came up with that common market with an emphasis of making security somewhat stronger, especially between the presidents, among the presidents of the governing states, in that they keep themselves in offices for a longer period without any inconvenience from the neighbor. Meaning that the course of coming up with these common markets was not set up to help the people within the states, but to comfort the heads of state with those countries. On the issue of DRC to join EACIS, according to me, or according to my observation, I think DRC just needed the most security.
So you're okay with DRC joining the East African community? Well, sorry we lost you. I would have loved to hold a better and bigger conversation with you, Juma Akram, because you seemed to have a lot of information about the East African community, and you seem to be taking keen interest on the East African community. Do you think it's viable? Do you think it will work? Call us and tell us your views. Our numbers will be on the screen, and if you're unable to reach us on phone, of course our social media platforms are present. We have Facebook, we have Twitter, we have Instagram, and we have YouTube, where you can leave your comments, and we will be reading it as we continue with this conversation of the East African community. Now, the East African community and the East African court or High Court is not too different, because it is a coalition of the East African, community. Even the judges in the court are part of the East African community. Now, when we look at the judges and those that are there from Kenya, so we have from Burundi, we have from Kenya, we have from Uganda, and we have from Rwanda. Now, those justices are supposed to deal with the ongoing question of cases in these East African nations. We remember that Malem Mabirizi, who has been using this particular session, has been using it to the point that he took the age limit petition, the East African community saying it is illegal for that to happen, and they threw out the case. And Mabirizi is still insisting that this time the recusal will be taken to court. Now let's come back to the conversation of Democratic Republic of Congo joining the East African community, because that is the recent discussion that we have been having with the head of states from these different other countries, and we're trying to formulate and speed up the process of DRC joining the East African community. Now, do you think that Democratic Republic of Congo should be joining the East African community, Or should it not join the East African community, given that it has a lot of insecurities? And one of the fears that Uganda has had, or Ugandans have had, and politicians as well, about DRC-Uganda relationship is over the fact that Democratic Republic of Congo has had chaos, and we're scared of the chaos spilling over to Uganda. When the roads are well done, the rebels will be able to come to Uganda, and that is our biggest fear. Now, when we look at the Democratic or Republic of Congo, also known as Congo Kinshasa or DR Congo, is, historically, or has been known as historically Zaire, and it is located in Central Africa. And it is by area the largest country in sub-Saharan Africa, and the second largest in all of Africa, and the 11th largest in the world. Of course, the president is Felix Tshisekedi. Now, one thing that the president made clear is that given the statistics I've just read you, given Congo's position in the world, given Congo's position in Africa, given its, geography. Hello, a very good morning.
Morning to you. Assalamu alaikum.
Yes, your name and where you're calling from.
It's me, Makram, from Nabur.
Well, I'm glad that you're watching the first show, and I'm glad that you could call us. What is your thought on Democratic Republic of Congo joining the East African community?
Yeah, my point was that DRC to join East African community, it's not about that. It's not all about that. DR Congo needs a lot from it, but what it needs security. It's different that DR Congo is big in size compared to other countries within the East African community. It makes it to be insecure. Even look at the wrangles within that country between the incumbent and the former president. All of them, they are unsettled. So they need somewhere to, that president needs somewhere he can lean on so that he can get security and keep his president, his post, how can I say? So what it says, or what it sees, that he can get security from this judge of Uganda, whom he thinks that it's overstay in power. Can make him, can make the incumbent president, can make him to stay in power longer.
Well, again, I lose you as you were about to make the epitome of your point. And he's saying that the insecurity in DRC Congo shouldn't scare us. But here's the thing, isn't it us popping our nose in the affairs of the East African Commission? Well, the president of DRC, the president, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, says no. He says brothers and sisters need to be there for themselves. The insecurity in DRC Congo, one way or the other, affects security in Uganda. And if we don't send an army to DRC to help them fight the insecurity, then we're putting ourselves in a position where we ourselves are shooting ourselves in the foot, because, insecurity in Congo means insecurity in Uganda. Insecurity in Congo means lack of business in Uganda, because most of our goods are being exported to DRC, and they're one of the biggest consumers of products in Uganda. We have a caller. Very good morning. Yes. Nkuliriza ssebo wasuuza otya amannya go ne gy'okubidde. You are breaking, but let us try your best to hear you. Yes, please. A very good morning.
Yes, hello.
Wanji nkuwuliriza ssebo, yogera nange.
Good morning, madam.
A very good morning to you.
You're speaking to Damien from Kasese.
Who?
Damien from Kasese.
Damien from Kasese. How are people in Kasese doing?
Oh, they are so fine.
Well, tell them STV appreciates their viewership.
Yes.
DRC joining the East African community, Damien. I lost Damien from Kasese. I was looking forward to listening to your view on this DRC issue, because Kasese is one of the places whereby your king wanted to make it an independent, standalone country. And that is where we saw the fight that killed a number of people. And we're here again discussing the coalition of the different East African communities. And that means the coalition starting and the unity of Uganda as a region, and then the other East African countries. So what is your view? Keep calling us. I'm sorry the lines keep cutting out, but keep calling us and tell us your view on what it is you think that the East African community is going to do security-wise to DRC Congo, and whether it is smart for Uganda to join DRC Congo in this particular fight. Now, let's look at the history, a little bit of the history of DRC Congo and where the fight began. Now, on the 25th of November in 1965, the Army Chief of Staff, Joseph Desire Mobutu, who later renamed himself Mobutu Sese Seko. A lot of us who have gone through our history lessons and who have heard about our history have learned who Mobutu Sese Seko is. Now, he officially came to power through a coup d'etat in 1971, and he renamed the country Zaire. Now, the country has run as a dictatorial one-party state with popular mission of the revolution as a sole legal party. Now, Zaire's issues have not started today. Hello?
Hello.
Yes, a very good morning to you. Amanya Gone Jokobide.
Maybe I speak in Uganda. Wherever I try to use English, I get off.
It's okay. You get a Muluganda. You get off when you speak English. You get a Muluganda. Sewa tukuuliriza.
Akram Juma.
Yes, Akram. You're very interested in this topic, aren't you?
Yeah. Kakati mbate nchakugama kusonga ya DRC. According to my observation, DRC Congo kwegatta ku East African community. There's a muntu akuina kyeyagala kinene nnyo mu East African community. Because for real, tutunula ku nsi ya mineral resources ennyingi. DRC Congo eri ku mwanjo. Ogeza n'ogera ku basajja nga Mobutu Sese Seko, balina abasajja nga Patrice Lumumba. Ensi eyo bakulaga nti abasajja badde balwanyi. Even the former president abadde kugunira lidde erinnya naye akulaga nti abadde fighter. So n'okujja mu East African community azze kunoonyayo okulaba nti at least in case of any chaos waliwo ensi esobola omubeererawo. Ate ng'ekige kyasobolera ddala okukola obulungi so kati kikyabaze kati ye jajja n'abala ebyobugagga mu nsi eyo. Abazeeyo embaawo, abazeeyo golodi, jajja ye abala waafunira. So wanakuŋŋaanya ensi zonna n'azireeta wamu ne zibeerawa. Ye nga ye ajja kusigala nga ye pulezidenti akyasinza obugagga. Ekyokubiri agenda kipinga gundi agenda kwekipingira mu buyinza ebbanga eppanvu olw'ensonga nti alina ensi ezo nga ye jajja. Waliwo ensonga abantu gye batatunuulira nnyo maaso nti lwaki Museveni up to now tannabeera attacked by any other state, maybe America. Balaba nga bamufunamu his presence in Somalia bamufunamu. Musigire ekintu ekifaanaganako bwe kityo. So kiwajja nti Museveni mwaganya kubeera nga yeekuumira mu buyinza kubanga amakinga ziri ensi eziri wabweru okulaga nti bannenzi temunnumba, there is something I'm trying out to settle in Africa. Naye nga mu bufunze byonna tebirina we biyambira muntu wa wansi. Kati nze kooti ya East Africa terina wegenda kunnyambira. Olaba ngenda muyeewo ku kyalo kwennyini, ku kyalo kwembeera nesitafunamu kalungi era East Africa gye naatuukamu. Simaya St. Carins terina bigenda kuyambiramu olw'ensonga n'olukumi lwennyini lwenkwatira wano mu Uganda luganya okubeera mu vali. Byonna byetoolera kubaganda byetoolera kula tufunyemu tutya nga ffe abakulembeze b'ensi ezo zetukulembera. So nempuuzika nga nteesa nti East African community eyo weeri naye singa enfuna ku basajja nga wetwandiradde Magufuli owa Tanzania.
Yes.
Uganda ntugamba nti tulinamu Kyagulanyi Ssentamu. Ne Kenya bwetyo oyinza okwekasa nti East African community esobola okugasa omuntu wa wansi nti trade esobola okubeera smoothly okutuukira ddala ku muntu wa wansi nga ne mu mmwanyi zange nezifuga paka mu Kigali. Naye pannawo tekisobola kubeerawo olw'ensonga nti obukulembeze bwe tulina bo beenoonyeza kwegaggawaza. Nowa DRC Congo yennyini naye anoonya waagaggawalira essaawa eno. So tebiina bigenda tuyambira ate era tekirina ttafali ekiteeka ku Uganda okuba nga omuntu wa wansi ye agenda kusigala ng'akyabonaabona mpozi nga tuli Katonda n'atuggyirako omusajja oyo wetujja okubeera ab'eddembe. Neeyanziza mu kusaawa abayiko.
Tweyanzege. Just to note what they call nota bella, NB, is that your views are yours. You have the right to give your personal opinions, but they have no attachment to STV as a company and STV as a television station. But go ahead and call and give us your views on this. Hello, a very good morning.
Hello.
You're on Select TV, the first show. Manyagone Jokubite.
Hello.
Nkuliriza Seba, I can get you clearly.
Amanyagangeze Andrew Balinda.
Abdu, oli otya Abdu, wasuze otya?
Nasuze bulungi so.
Amina Abdu, endowooza yo ku DRC okujoininga the East African community.
Kakati na ntenze cyane ku Ham Towers. Kalisa DR Congo okujoininga East African community. Tekigasa nnyo lwansonga sembo bati. Kubanga n'ensi zennyini eziri mu East African community. Abantu abava mu Uganda bagenda Kenya babonyaabonyezebwa. Omusuubuzi bw'ava eno n'agenda e Rwanda bamuteerako emisolo miyitirivu. Kaakati ogenda okwetegereza nga tetulina nnyo kyamaanyi we tufuniramu. Kubanga ova wano e Uganda n'ogenda e Kenya, Abannakenya ne bakuyisa bubi nnyo naye nga tuli mu mukago gwe gumu ogwa East African community. Kati n'oganvu ebuuza East African community wa weetugasiza. Kirabo muganda mwannyinaze. Kati n'ekirala abateekawo obusisima East African community abakulira aba pulezidenti waffe ayeremeza ku ntebe. N'ogenda n'otunuulira dda East African community ayagala ogikulembera ye kennyini dikiteeta. Kakati ensi eziri mu East African community tulinamu bbiri namba bazina ba dikiteeta Rwanda ne Uganda. Tebakyusa bukulembeze, tebaga kuva mu bukulembeze. Kati bw'anaagenda okulenda East African community anakkiriza banna okumuvuganya. Tekisoboka ekyo. Kikiba tekisobokera ddala. Kaakati Kongo okwegatta ku East African community okutwaliza awamu si kibi kubanga ne Kongo erina gundi ekyali virgin sofa. Kubanga minerals zeyina nnyingi nnyo noera ja kwesanga nga bannayuganda basobola kuva wanyu kugenda Kongo okukola busuubuzi kubanga n'entambula yennyini nzibu. Kati awo kijja kubanga kikaluubiza abantu abasigadde mu East Africa okubanga Kongo yeegatta ku East African community. Tuba tetulina nnyo kyamaanyi we tufuniramu okujjako ogenda bugenzi mu ntalo Kongo kweyongera muno kutuleetera ndwadde. Nze ndaba bwe banga baagala Kongo egatte ku East African community abandi badde balenga strategy abakulembeze abaludde mu bukulembeze bwa African countries or East African countries ezino zetulimu abo tebandi participatingeko ddala kwesimba okukulenda East African community. Ne tufunayo abakulembeze abalina ensonga nga Magufuli nti Magufuli sofa yakafuga terms 2 oyo asobola okukulembera East African community akkiriza ebiva mu kulonda tetunaamulonda ajja kukkiriza nti taamu gyafuzeeko emu egemala tukwatuleze omulala. Naye badikiteeta bo tubakooye omeya tayakuumira mpeera.
Kale neyanziza sebo tweyanzige. Thank you very much for calling. Thank you very much for being part of the show, and thank you very much for watching the first show on Select TV. We appreciate the trust you put in us in giving you trustworthy information. We'll pick a few more callers as we go into, of course, the lifestyle segment by Angie. But the conversation here is East African community.
Hello.
Very good morning. Amanyogo ne Jokubidde Ssebo wasuze otya?
Nasuze bulungi.
Your names?
I'm called Kaziba Moses.
Who?
Kaziba Moses calling
okay,
from
Moses.
in Nakawa.
Moses, how is Nakawa?
Directly to Uganda. Ekisooka obutamanya tuleme kwolwonna bigambo bye tutategeera. Like you said, era olw'okumuyita dictator abamu byogera butamanya kubanga teriyo muntu nga dictator gusobola kumanyirira nga mukulembeze n'omugamba nti oli dictator ogende tokola bwoti n'obeerawo bona abantu bajja kugamba nti abantu babakwata kati gwe nkubuuza lwaki tebakukwata kitegeeza obatoziza misango ekyokubiri gyenjagala okukola olaba obutambula ku solidiya ekibuga tugenda kukiggala mukifulume mukole mutya kati obwe bamukwata ogamba nti bamukuteza mukuta abadde afuuse dictator so tojja tugamba dictator olwokuba bakwata abamenyi b'amateeka ekyokubiri tuli mu nkola ya bibiina bya bufuzi bingi if you are a member of NRA, you have the right to demand members of a party which you are not part of to change their leader. Go what is threat of war? They should be saying nothing. I remember they should know what this is. Then that mindset, whoever dies, there is a witch behind. So that is the habit in Uganda. Whoever loses is cheating. You are taking the hands down.
You're breaking up a little bit. You're breaking up a little bit, but I had almost half. I had like 3/4 of what you said, and then the quarter just got mashed up in the call. But I do hear a lot of our views are really based on the fact that the leaders that are leading the East African communities are the ones who made fail the East African integration. And a number of people that have called today, a very good morning.
Hello, Latifa.
Wanji Sebo. Bulungi gwe wasuza otya?
Amanya ngedde tongula James Dr. DRC. Kati nze kyembadde nteesa kiri nti abantu baffe Abannayuganda abamu bajjudde buddizi bukyayi n'ekintu ekiyinza otuyambamu ensi bo tebakifaako kiraba Congo okwegatta ku East African Community kiba ekituyambye olw'ensonga bw'oba musuukuzi kiba kijja kwanguyira ogendeereko byetunda e Congo oba byosuubula okuva e Congo nga tebakutaddeko nyo restrictions nga ensi gye tutakolagana nayo okiraba naye olwokuba nti abantu batubo bajjudde obukyayi ebitategeerekeka buli kimu gavumenti neweba ekikoze nga essaawa zino yo sikiyinza oba tekirinayo kituyambira ng'abatuuze naye omikagiride gibaawo for future reference gisobola otuyamba mu maaso ng'obukulembeze oluusi ne bwe tuba twagala enkyukakyuka eyo gye tugamba mutwagala enkyukakyuka omukulembeze anaabadde atuusa nga ate ye nakiteeka muki mu nkola tekituyamba ng'ebyo naye abantu baffe bamanyi kimu kwogerera gavumenti ennaku zino oli nakuba essimu dictator waba dictator osobola okubyogerera ku TV ekiraba oba kikyo bagende batunulire characteristics eza dictator by'ebizimu tebayo press freedom tebayo freedom of speech toyinza gamba muno abantu babakwata yinevano even ne bacriminals bekwekera ennaku zino mu gundi bekwekera mu byabufuzi mundi muwagizi wano someone muzi wa misango deninaze mumanye no mu katumba abadde asita abayaya wa buli kamu nga babba abantu batemula abantu olwamutwala abantu ne batandika kuyekinga story temuwagizi wano so tuve mu kwogera obwogezi ebintu ebisu ebitakwatagana yes tuyinza batwagala enkyukakyuka naye essaawa zino we should move forward ebyobufuzi biba sizono essaawa zino tulina kukola kitula amaaso ng'abantu era ng'eggwanga neyanziza
Well, thank you so much for your thoughts and thank you so much for the phone call, because here's what I like about my viewers today. You're so elaborate about what you think about the East African community, and you have details and you understand what you're talking about. I really appreciate the time you're taking to be part of this show. Now, here are the advantages for the East African community. For us who are asking ourselves, I'm from Arua, I'm Arua. Here's the thing. The East African community, we were tandise, olaba ebizibu that we're getting as a nation. Uganda, Kenya, ne bakusosola, Uganda, Rwanda, ne bakusosola. We're in South Africa. Of course, South Africa is not the East African community, but I'm giving you a situation like in South Africa where there was a xenophobia. Oja Uganda, ne bakusosola. The East African community is supposed to allow labor to move freely among these countries in the East African community. That means we want Jagala Kolera Kenya. I can easily move to Kenya, get a job, start working, and living in the same currency that the Kenyan who is in Uganda earns. That means the sentence, the two earnings, they're almost at the same level. That means that they need to struggle hard to ensure that the cost of living in these different East African countries are at par. Kubanga tosobola teka currency nga zifanagana. Nayenga in Uganda, the level of living, the cost of living is low or higher than Kenya. And then the gap, the income gap between the rich and the poor. Now, here is not balancing. So all those things they ought to do in the East African community, all those things they ought to make a reality in the East African community. But will they do it? The question that most of our viewers are asking is, the East African community, but our leaders ready to look at a situation whereby, or why, where Uhuru, what to deco for 5 years, it is time for MUSEVENI to take over. MUSEVENI, what to deco for 5 years, vayo. Whether you finish your manifesto or not, vayo omlala ature. Are they ready to have such diplomacy when they're dealing with the East African community? Are they ready for such democracy when it comes to the East African community? If they are not ready, then some people think that the East African community is not viable and we're not ready for this move. However, when you look at the advantages are there. It will open up employment. Look at Uganda. They're done with school, but they come back to school and they don't have jobs. Now, the only thing that will happen in the East African community is you get jobs. Or you go to Kenya and work as a doctor. Nobody will stop you. Nobody will ask for anything. And that is the true definition of the East African community. A very good morning to you.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
I can hear you loud and clear. Your names?
How are you, madam?
Yes. Good morning.
Fine. How are you? Good morning.
Your names and where you're calling from?
Abdullah Juma from Arua.
Yeah. How are you doing? Mingoni? Miala?
Okay. Mama, okay.
Miala? I wish we would be discussing in our local language, Mirwadi and all that, but unfortunately, we are unable to. Let's talk about the DRC Congo input in the East African community.
Yes, please. I want to talk in Uganda because I'm from Uganda.
Gena maso.
Nyabo chikinganyo chingalo okogera ku nsonga ya Congo kwega ta East Africa. Isonga ziringa chakwe nsonga esoka tetumanyi Congo yali. Abantu abafugibwa bayita Franca colonies. Bakula mu batumibwa mu nkole etali ya East Africa. Bali mu nkole ya French. Ogenda ku political status ya Congo. Ono yakayita mu gwe bayita Tshisekedi. Yayisemu otunya kalulu akabadde e Congo. Martin Fayulu yayita mu nga president. Naye banga mu Uganda ekiriyo kankano. Tetunakumanya abantu kyakoze ne Kabila era nga balangirira atali kutuufu. N'ogenda South Sudan, tuyingira South Sudan mu East Africa. Naye kayinza ku nsi mutaba democracy n'akamu abateeyo nga balonda South Sudan tebabatisamu paati n'aka. Munda wange olaba balangira mulala. Kati ne mu Uganda kye kimu. Bwe tunaakola East Africa nga yabayaaye n'abantu abajaati n'abakuziba tutukutukiriza East Africa. Tuyira Kenya ne Tanzania. They are showing you things for the market democratic dispensation. Never Uganda, next Congo, Tukunganya Chi. We have abantu from East Africa, but Bamogote, Bali, East Africa, you look at Bakinyata, bazimba ekika n'omulamwa naye kati tukuŋŋaanya kasasiro ey'amabbi yange mu Uganda kati bwolina Museveni anoonya waana ezo Kongo mbadde Kongo kyekibadde Kongo kimanyi mbadde okugera twetwagala South Africa nayina kyatwalala Uganda ate ekyali tulina okunya abantu enkesizenzero kagana South Sudan bwogenda South Sudan kati bagana tulina enkutinyabawe Sudan bakutemuwe ekongo balina bekibatujja tebatuwaga ezo kati twagala tutegatteko naye nga tebatuwaga babeerawo ng'abantu abali bagamba naye na Uganda bagende Kenya Kenya bakutunanga mu Uganda ogende South Sudan bakuitalla ogende Congo tebakulaga kati bakakisani bataka kuyangu kwenye Uganda tekumtulina mama wa Afrika ndokusaba kwa
Well, Twayanziga, all the way from Arua, our appreciation comes back on board to you watching STV and the First Show wherever you are. We appreciate your commitment to it. We're still on the conversation of Democratic Republic of Congo joining the East African Commission. Now, the argument that I have had is that if South Sudan has joined... Hello, a very good morning. Your name's and where you're calling
I'm sorry to be back. Kasra Moses, but I have some questions.
Go ahead.
First of all, are you aware that many Ugandans have married the Congolese? Are you aware that the business in Kampala, it is starting, or some business people are starting on Congolese business people? Are you aware that Congolese are importing goods to Uganda, their country? Do you know why these buses go up up the borders? It's because of Congolese. In Arua, the previous caller said it's in Arua. How many people from Arua who do business in Congo? A very big number. So the issue is not about the leader, but someone who is doing business, someone who is getting market. If people are getting market, you see people moving with cosmetics. Are they not Congolese? What about the pretending? For them, they are bringing here goods. They're selling in Congo. So if the market is open and you have to go to Congo, is it bad? Makayabu. Yes, Makayabu sold. Is it not sold in Congo? So, if it is officially what market is free, you also going to just president because political, my mission, it is there to be one safety. This army, leaders who have stopped you from this. Some of you have land, you decided to down this, you want to blame us when your land is full of bush? You don't even have a head or a chicken. You eat local eggs? And the president refuses to chicken. So, for us, we have the market. People are not there. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. The East African community conversation continues. Should DRC join the East African community or shouldn't it join the East African community? The relationship within Uganda and the East African community has been long and lasting. We've seen that Uganda and the East African community plus Rwanda have had a relationship for a very long time, and there were accusations that the Rwandan genocide started all the way from the rebels minerals that were in DRC. Relationship is being mended, and now we're seeing that Uganda is also trying to mend its relationship with Congo. We know there's a time that Uganda, Rwanda, and Burundi, there's a sanction that was slapped against them to get out of DRC, and they were saying that Uganda was taking advantage of the goods that were in DRC. Of course, when we're talking about goods, we're talking about the minerals that are in DRC, and there are allegations that the roads that is built between Uganda and DRC is there for us to pull out the minerals. But hey, when it comes to a market, a community, it's you get, I pull, you pull. And like just our last caller has said, the influx of Congolese in Uganda is big. Congolese buy things in Uganda and they take to DRC. But how much business do we have with DRC? We have a call online. Hello?
Yes, hello.
A very good morning to you.
Good morning to you.
Your names and where you're calling from.
Speaking to Damian from Kasese. I'm back.
Who?
Damian from Kasese.
Oh, okay. Yes, go ahead.
Yes?
We can hear you. DRC in the East African community, do you see it happening? Do you think it should happen?
Yeah, Uganda.
It's okay. Genda maso.
Lwansonga nti tulabanga Uganda etegeka okukola ku nguudo eziri mu DRC ekintu ekiraga nti waliwo omukago ogugenda mu maaso Uganda ne Congo naddala nnyo mu byobusuubuzi naye ekizibu kitulina abalidazi baffe gye bakikoleddewo kubanga ebyo byonna bisobola okugenda mu maaso nga waliwo enkolagana nnungi DRC okwegata mu mukago gwa East Africa naye abasuubuzi babonaabona emisolo mingi abaana baligenda balikuteemali zaabwe naye zifa bufi abalidazi baffe bateeseyo mu ggwanga kutukiikirira tebana kyebatuyamba.
Well, thank you so much. Taxes is his problem, the high rate of taxes in exporting and importing these goods from the different East African regions. Well, here's what we're hoping. We're hoping that once the East African community is settled, once we have the same currency, once we have the same constitution, once we have the same East African bank and the same East African bloc, all these small, meager issues will be dealt with. A very good morning. Your name and where you're calling from. Hello. Request TV.
Assalamualaikum.
Alaikum salam. What's your name? Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. What is your name?
Hello.
Nkuli Sebo. I hear you loud and clear.
Juma.
Yes, Juma.
I think there is an issue I want to talk about. The core cause why East African community was started up. If we have to take a background, East Africa was started up by 3 countries, Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania.
Main countries.
But of all the 3 states, by the time the East African community state, Uganda was more developed than those 2 countries, than the rest countries. But look now, Uganda is still under the lower class. Magufuli was afforded to take over Tanzania for terms. He has managed to put it in the second middle class. But I don't know what's happening with our people. Whenever I talk of the dictatorial rule in Uganda, they start complaining. A guy has ruled us for almost 30 years plus, but even failed to put us from the bottom up to the top of these things. Because we could have been the superpowers of the East African community, but now we cannot talk. Because Kenya is having a way forward, Tanzania is having a way forward, but Uganda is still lacking. We are still behind, we are still poor. Even the sense of living within our people, within the entire community, they are still low. Those guys are looking about their stomachs. Each and every day, they're paving a way how they can survive, how they can keep themselves richer. Yet the people, the local people are starving. But I don't know why people cannot see that issue. Museveni's involvement in DR Congo does not mean that he needs people or he loves people of his country. No. He's trying to see how he can gain from Congo as a person together with his family. Because if he has been in power for 36 years and Uganda has even failed to lift from the lower class to the middle class, which Magufuli has done for almost 2 terms, it means that your president abatayina kyayagala tukoleranga bantu. And so if you plan to put themselves, you take the case which has been between Uganda and Rwanda. Kagame and Museveni. Have you seen Kenyatta coming out, the Kenya's president coming out to talk about that issue? Have you seen Magufuli coming out to talk about that issue? Why? For them, they know that East African community is a love. It's just lighting, but it cannot reason. So what for them have to do is just to bring big ideas. And they are moving. But Uganda, we are still studying. I was even surprised that even South Sudan, a nearby country here, somehow developing. If you are trying to see its currency, it's like the currency of Uganda. This country, Rwanda, is developing on a higher speed compared to Uganda. So Museveni is trying to see how he can convert himself in power, but not thinking about people. Look at what he was made in the previous election. He was beaten all over the country, but for him he managed to score. And we are still asking ourselves how God. Again, so it's not about saying that we don't love the president, but we can see each and everything can move on smoothly with a nice.
Well, thank you so much. I will repeat it. Your views are yours and you have the right to say your views, but they are nothing to do with the views of Select TV and the visions or goals that they stand for. However, I want to thank you and applaud you for the conversation and debate that we have had on air on the East African community and whether DRC Congo should or should not join the East African community. A lot of you think that the problem is not the East African community itself. The problem is the leaders who are promoting and progressing the East African community. Now our Facebook platforms will be open. Be sure to check on us and be sure to leave your views so that we can read them now that we can't pick up all phone calls. Akram, thank you so much. Damian, Abdul, Moses, and all the other people, Kavuma inclusive, who called us. Now, we'll now go and shift from this conversation to seeing what Angie has for us in store. Now, Angie has a discussion of what book you should be reading today, what inspiring personality is there, and what interior decor tip is there for you. Now stay with us and then we'll be right back.